Imagine a child who couldn't speak properly until he was almost 4 years old. A child who was called slow, different, even strange by his teachers. No one believed in him. No one thought he would become great. And yet, that same child would grow up to change the way we understand time, space, and the universe itself. That child was Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein was born on March 14, 1879, in a small city called Ulm. His parents, Hermann and Pauline Einstein, were ordinary people. There was nothing about his birth that suggested greatness. But very soon, something felt different. Einstein didn't speak like other children. He would repeat words slowly, whispering them to himself. People started to worry. Even his teachers thought he wouldn't succeed. One of them once said, "This boy will never amount to anything." Imagine hearing that as a child. But Einstein wasn't slow. He was thinking differently. He was always quiet, always observing. While other kids played, Einstein would sit alone, lost in thought. One day, his father gave him a small gift, a simple compass. That moment changed everything. Einstein noticed something strange. No matter how he moved the compass, the needle always pointed in the same direction. Invisible forces guiding it. He couldn't see them, but they were real. That single moment sparked a question in his mind. What else exists that we cannot see? And from that question, a lifelong curiosity was born. If you think school is tough, Einstein would agree with you. He hated the rigid system. Teachers expected students to memorize, not to question. But Einstein questioned everything. Why does light behave the way it does? What is time? What is space? But instead of encouraging him, his teachers got frustrated. They saw him as rebellious. Once, a teacher even told him, "Your presence in this class undermines respect for me." That's how misunderstood he was. At the age of 15, Einstein made a bold decision. He dropped out of school. Yes, the future genius. Quit school, but not because he was weak, because he refused to follow a system that didn't allow him to think freely. He moved to Zurich to continue his education in a more open environment. There, things slowly began to change. For the first time, Einstein found teachers who valued ideas. At Zurich Polytechnic, Einstein finally started to shine. But even then, he wasn't a perfect student. He skipped lectures. He studied what interested him: physics, mathematics, the mysteries of the universe. He wasn't chasing grades. He was chasing understanding. And that made all the difference. In 1900, Einstein graduated. But success didn't come easily. He couldn't find a job. Professors didn't recommend him. Employers didn't trust him. For almost 2 years, he struggled, facing rejection after rejection. Imagine being a graduate with big dreams, but no opportunities. That was Einstein's reality. Finally, in 1902, Einstein got a job as a clerk at the Swiss Patent Office. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't his dream. His job was simple: review other people's inventions. But something amazing happened there. While working on patents, Einstein kept thinking about light, thinking about time, thinking about space. And in that small office, something extraordinary was brewing. Einstein didn't need a laboratory. His greatest tool was his imagination. He would ask questions like, what would happen if I rode alongside a beam of light? Think about that. Not experiments with machines, but experiments in the mind. These thought experiments would soon change the world forever. At this point, Einstein was just a normal man, a clerk, unknown, ignored. But inside his mind, a revolution was about to begin. A revolution that would shake the foundations of physics. A revolution that would make the impossible possible. The year that changed everything. A man sitting in a small office, doing a normal job, earning a modest salary. No fame, no recognition, no one watching. And yet, inside his mind, the universe was being rewritten. That man was Albert Einstein, and the year was 1905. 1905 is now known as Einstein's miracle year. But at that time, It was just another ordinary year. Einstein was still working at the patent office. No university position, no big laboratory, no team, just a desk, papers, and his imagination. But what he did in that single year would shock the entire scientific world. Einstein's first paper was about something very simple: light. At that time, scientists believed light was just a wave. But Einstein asked a bold question. What if light is not just a wave, but also a particle? This idea was revolutionary. He explained something called the photoelectric effect, how light can knock electrons out of a material. This wasn't just theory. It was something that could be tested. And guess what? Years later, this idea would earn him the Nobel Prize in Physics. Not relativity, but this. In his second paper, Einstein studied something strange: tiny particles moving randomly in water. This movement was called Brownian motion. People didn't fully understand it, but Einstein proved something incredible. Atoms exist. Yes, today we take atoms for granted. But back then, it wasn't proven. Einstein's work gave real evidence that matter is made of tiny particles. Now comes the idea that changed everything: time. We all think time is constant, the same for everyone. But Einstein asked, what if time is different for different people? Sounds impossible, right? But Einstein proved it mathematically. He introduced the special theory of relativity. According to this theory, time can slow down, length can shrink, and nothing can travel faster than light. This was not just science. It was a completely new way of seeing reality. From this theory came one of the most famous equations in history: E equals mc squared. This simple-looking equation changed the world forever. It means energy and mass are interchangeable. Even a tiny amount of mass can produce a massive amount of energy. At that time, no one realized its full impact. But later, this equation would lead to both nuclear power and atomic bombs. You might think, after such groundbreaking work, Einstein became famous overnight. But that's not true. At first, no one believed him. His ideas were too strange, too different. Many scientists ignored him. Some even laughed at him. Imagine discovering something world-changing, and people don't take you seriously. That was Einstein's reality. Slowly, his work started gaining attention. Scientists began to realize this man was not ordinary. By 1909, Einstein finally left the patent office. He became a professor at the University of Zurich. For the first time, he was officially recognized. But his journey was far from over. Einstein wasn't satisfied. He had explained part of the universe, but not all of it. Special relativity worked for simple systems. But what about gravity? What about the motion of planets? What about the universe itself? Einstein wanted a deeper answer, something more powerful. For the next 10 years, Einstein worked on a new theory. It was difficult, extremely difficult. Even he struggled. There were moments of doubt, moments of failure. But he didn't stop, because he believed. The important thing is not to stop questioning. And finally, in 1915, he completed something extraordinary. Einstein introduced the general theory of relativity. This theory explained gravity in a completely new way, not as a force, but as a curvature of space and time. Imagine space like a fabric. If you place a heavy object on it, it bends. That bending is what we feel as gravity. This idea was so powerful that it changed physics forever. But a theory is not enough. It needs proof. In 1919, during a solar eclipse, scientists tested Einstein's prediction. And the result? He was right. Light actually bent around the sun, exactly as Einstein predicted. Overnight, everything changed. Einstein became a global icon. Newspapers around the world talked about him. People called him a genius. The same man, who was once ignored, was now the most famous scientist in the world. Fame. It sounds like a dream. Respect, recognition, applause. But sometimes, fame comes with a price. And for Albert Einstein, That price was something he never expected. By the 1920s, Einstein was no longer just a scientist. He was a global celebrity. People invited him from all over the world. He traveled across countries, gave lectures, met world leaders, from Germany to United States. His name was everywhere. But while Einstein was rising, the world around him was falling apart. In Germany, a dangerous movement was growing, led by a man named Adolf Hitler. His ideology was based on hatred, especially against Jewish people, and Einstein was Jewish. Suddenly, his fame became a risk. His ideas were attacked. His books were burned. His life was in danger. In 1933, Einstein made a life-changing decision. He left Germany, not for travel, but for survival. He would never return to his homeland again. Imagine leaving everything behind. Your country, your home, your past, because staying could cost you your life. Einstein moved to the United States. There, he joined the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton. For the first time in years, he found safety, but his heart was still heavy because the world was heading towards something terrible. As time passed, a new danger emerged. Scientists discovered that Einstein's equation, E equals mc squared, could be used to create a weapon of unimaginable power, a weapon that could destroy entire cities. The atomic bomb. Einstein was deeply troubled. He had unlocked a truth of the universe, but now it could be used for destruction. In 1939, Einstein faced a difficult choice. He learned that Nazi Germany might be trying to build an atomic bomb. If they succeeded, the consequences would be catastrophic. So Einstein did something unexpected. He wrote a letter to Franklin D. Roosevelt. In that letter, he warned about the danger. He urged the United States to begin its own nuclear research. That letter played a key role in starting the Manhattan Project. Years later, the atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Thousands of lives gone in seconds. The world was shocked, and Einstein was heartbroken. Even though he didn't directly build the bomb, he felt responsible. He once said, "If I had known they would succeed, I would have done nothing." After the war, Einstein changed. He was no longer just a scientist. He became a voice for peace. He spoke against war, against nuclear weapons. He warned humanity, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. He believed science should be used to build, not destroy. Despite everything, Einstein remained simple. He didn't care about wealth. He didn't chase luxury. He wore simple clothes, lived a quiet life. He loved music, especially the violin. And even after becoming a legend, he kept asking questions. Because for Einstein, curiosity was everything. Even in his later years, Einstein worked on one final goal, a unified theory of everything, a theory that could explain all forces of the universe in one equation. But this time, he couldn't complete it. Even the greatest minds have unfinished dreams, the legacy that changed humanity forever. Every story has an ending, but some lives never truly end because their ideas, their impact, their legacy lives on forever. And that is the story of Albert Einstein. By the 1950s, Einstein was growing older. His hair had turned completely white, his body slower, but his mind still as sharp as ever. He was living in Princeton, spending his days thinking, writing, and searching for answers. Not for fame, not for recognition, but for truth. Most people, after achieving so much, would stop. But not Einstein. He continued working on his dream, a unified theory of the universe, a single explanation for everything: gravity, light, energy, space, time. One equation that could explain the entire universe. But this was not easy. Years passed, and the answer remained just out of reach. Einstein was not rich in the way most people imagine. He didn't care about money. He didn't chase power. Instead, He believed in something much deeper: imagination, curiosity, humanity. He once said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge, because knowledge is limited, but imagination, it has no boundaries." After witnessing war, destruction, and loss, Einstein spent his final years speaking for peace. He warned the world about nuclear weapons. He encouraged leaders to choose dialogue over destruction. He believed that humanity's greatest strength was not intelligence, but compassion. On April 18, 1955, Einstein's journey came to an end. He passed away quietly in a hospital in Princeton. No grand ceremony, no dramatic farewell, just silence. But even in his final moments, he was thinking, working, searching. It is said that papers were found beside him, filled with equations, still trying to understand the universe. Einstein may have left the world, but his ideas never did. His theories changed everything: how we understand time, how we see space, how we use energy. From GPS systems to space exploration, his work still shapes our world today. But here's the truth: Einstein was not just a genius. He was a reminder that you don't have to fit in to succeed. You don't have to follow the crowd. You don't have to be perfect. Einstein was once the child who couldn't speak properly, the student who was rejected, the man who was ignored, and yet he became one of the greatest minds in human history. If there's one lesson from Einstein's life, it is this: never stop questioning, because every great discovery begins with a simple question: what if? Why not? Is there another way? So the next time you feel different, misunderstood, or lost, remember this story. Remember the boy who was called slow. Remember the man who changed the universe. Remember Albert Einstein, because greatness is not about being perfect. It's about thinking differently, believing in yourself, and never giving up. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because stories like this don't just entertain, they change the way we see the world.